In chapter 18, it picks up with Amir leaving Rahim Khan's house, and he's really angry about all the lies that Baba has told him over the years. And so he starts to think about all the signs that he didn't understand that Hassan was actually his brother. And he was remembering how Baba never missed Hassan's birthday or all the nice gifts that he gave him. And he also remembered how upset Baba was when Hassan and Ali left, and so he's just remembering all of these signs that Hassan was his brother. And then Amir considers that Baba kept saying there's only one sin, and that sin is theft, and Baba stole Ali's honor and stole Hassan's identity and Amir's brother, so Baba is really not living up to his biggest principle. And then he wonders if Ali and Hassan would have survived if he didn't drive them out of the house. And he understands that he needs to save Sarab so he can make up for Baba's sins. And then he decides that he'll travel to Kabul and find Sarab. In chapter 19, Amir is in the car with Farid, his driver, and he's on his way to Kabul. And they go to a checkpoint at the border, and they make it through to Afghanistan. And there's tension between Farid and Amar because Amir left to America and Farid had to stay in the country. So that night they stay in Jalabad with Farid's brother, and he tells them that he's a writer, and Wahid, Farid's brother, asks Amir if he writes about Afghanistan, and he reveals that he's not that kind of writer. Then Farid accuses Amir of returning to Afghanistan to sell his land and make money, and Wahid is saying that Farid should treat him with respect because Amir is his guest, and Amir feels like an outsider. Then Amir tells why he's really in Afghanistan, and he's here to rescue a Hazara boy named Sarab, and Farid understands that he's here for a more noble purpose. And while they're eating, Amir notices that Wahid's kids stare at his watch, and he gives it to them, but they lose interest in it very quickly, and then Farid says he'll help Amir find Sarab. Amir has a dream about Hassan, and in the dream he sees the soldiers around Hassan at Baba's house, and he sees them execute him, and he catches a glimpse of one of the soldiers' faces, and it is him, Amir. So when he's leaving, he walks outside and he feels nostalgic for the Afghanistan that he used to live in, and he also realizes that Wahid's kids weren't staring at his watch, they were staring at his food, and so he notes that for the second time in his life, he leaves a wad of cash underneath a mattress in Wahid's house for the family when they wake up.
We're talking about. There was a quote, I don't know, I liked this one. It said, "We had both betrayed the people who had given their lives for us." And with that came this realization that Rahim Khan had summoned me here to atone not just for my sins, but for Baba's too. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was really powerful. That like he could find a connection with his father, because before he was like having a hard time with like understanding his father's actions and stuff, and it kind of justifies like.
And he kind of sees that him and his father are more alike than he really thought that they were.
Mm-hmm. This is in chapter 19. This is just like probably one of my favorite like parts in the book. When he's talking to Farid, and he's talking about how like Afghanistan like doesn't like look the same to him or whatever, and he says, "That's the real Afghanistan, Aga Sahib. That's the Afghanistan I know. You've always been a tourist here. You just didn't know it." I don't know. It's just like, because Amir has been so privileged his whole life. Like, even in Afghanistan, he was privileged, and he didn't even realize it. And he didn't realize it until Farid said something to him. I don't know.
I think it kind of just like took somebody to tell him that for him to kind of understand that his whole life he has had those privileges, but he wasn't really aware until somebody could point it out for him.
And at some point he says something like, he's like, "I've always been like an outsider in my own country."
Yeah.
And it's just him. He just wasn't like majority of the people that lived there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then like when he's at, this is kind of goes with that, when he's at the house of like the brother of Farid, and he's like, do you write books about Afghanistan or whatever? And he like doesn't, and it's probably because he doesn't really know.
Yeah, he doesn't
Afghanistan.
know like
he
the
doesn't
real
know
Afghanistan.
what really Afghan people go through. He only knows
Yeah.
because his life was different, but it was kind of similar to a life of an American.
Yeah, right.
So.
I also really liked when he had the dream about, I don't know if it's a dream or just a vision. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
A dream of Hassan being shot, and when he realizes that he thinks of himself as the person who shot Hassan.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very powerful how he thinks he's the one who's ultimately killed Hassan.
His guilt has just manifested, you know, in this way. It's very powerful.
I liked this quote. It was like the ending quote, and it was like after Amir realized that the children were hungry.
Oh,
And he says, earlier that morning when I was certain no one was looking, I did something I had done 26 years earlier. I planted a fistful of crumpled money under a mattress. And like the fact that he mentions he had done the same exact thing 26 years earlier, it's like parallelism.
Right. I think it's even like more so because at that point, when he first planted that money, it was like for a negative reason, obviously, but now he's trying to do
It
good
was like
with it.
the first time was selfish and this time was selfless.
Yeah, oh, that was so good. But yeah, I know, I agree.
So in chapter 20, Amir is entering Kabul and he can like hardly recognize it. He'd been told that he wouldn't recognize it, but he really realizes he can't recognize it. Is way different than what he remembered it to be. And there's just rubble and beggars everywhere. And things that, you know, he remembered as a kid weren't there anymore, like a police station, all of the trees, and then Baba's orphanage is gone. And then people don't have electricity and they don't eat meat anymore because only the Taliban could afford the exorbitant costs that the Taliban had placed on it. And then when Amir sees a Taliban for the first time, he like stares them down, even though he's told not to do that. And then eventually they meet an old beggar who was actually once a professor at the university. And Amir's mother had worked there as well. So the guy actually said he knew Amir's mother, and especially during her pregnancy with Amir. And she had told this beggar that she'd been worried because of how happy she was, because if she people aren't usually that happy without something being taken from them. And then they eventually found the orphanage where Sarab was, and they had to, you know, muscle their way in because the director wasn't going to let them in at first. And the director actually had to sell off kids to keep the orphanage going. And that made both Amir and the guy he came with, Farhid, very mad. But it's what had to be done, or else the Taliban would take more than just one. And it turns out that Sarab was actually one of those kids who was taken, and now they have to go to the stadium to confront the leader of the group that keeps taking the kids so they can find Sarab.
Chapter 21 starts with Amir and Farah driving towards the Wazir Akbar Khan district, which is where Baba's house is. While they're driving, they see a dead body and a man who's selling his prosthetic leg. Once they're actually into the district, it's okay. This is because the people behind the Taliban live here, and they're considered to be the real brains of the government. Amir interrupts the story with a narrative. In the narrative, Hassan and Amir are in their childhood days. Hassan and Amir find a turtle, and they paint the shell, calling themselves great explorers. Amir sees his old house. He sees the Jeep in the driveway, which replaces the black Mustang that Baba used to have, and he notices that the wall of alien corn is still there. Farid says that it's easier to go on if you can just forget the past, but the new Amir wants to remember it. Amir walks up the hill with a pomegranate tree, and the tree has wilted, but Amir is still able to find the carving, which says Amir and Hassan, the Sultans of Kabul. Farid then honks, saying that it's time to go. Amir and Farid get a hotel for $75, but there's no water, there's a cracked toilet, and lots of other problems. The next day, they go to Ghazi Stadium. The Talib officials roam with whips in their hands in case fans are cheering too loudly. At halftime, there are 3 trucks that drive onto the field. There's a Talib cleric that the orphanage director described, and there are 2 blindfolded adulterers as well as some Talib guards. The cleric gives a sermon about punishing the sinner, and the 2 adulterers have been placed in 2 holes in the ground. The cleric then starts to stone them, and every so often a Talib man with a stethoscope will go to check their heartbeat. And once they've been killed, the guards will load them up in a truck and fill the holes, and then the game resumes. And then the chapter ends with Amir scheduling a meeting with the cleric for 3 o'clock. It was the one, let me see what page. It was the one with when they went to the pomegranate tree. I thought that would be a good place for the setting. So I'll just read a little part from it. It said, "Then I went looking for the abandoned cemetery. It didn't take me long to find it. It was still there, and so was the old pomegranate tree. I leaned against the gray stone gateway to the cemetery where Hassan had buried his mother. The old metal gates hanging off the hinges were gone, and the headstones were barely visible through the thick tangles of weeds that claimed the plot. A pair of crows sat on the low wall that enclosed the cemetery. Hassan had said in his letter that the pomegranate tree hadn't bore fruit in 3 years. Looking at the wilted, leafless tree, I doubted it ever would again. I stood under it, remembered all the times we climbed it, straddled its branches, our legs swinging, dappled sunlight flickering through the leaves and casting on our faces a mosaic of light and shadow. The tangy taste of pomegranate crept into my mouth."
Well, just like, because he's saying Hassan hadn't said the tree hadn't borne fruit in years, it's also kind of saying Hassan hadn't had anything good in years. And when he says looking at the wilted, leafless tree, that's kind of reminiscent of Hassan being wilted and just not himself anymore after the incident in the alley. And he doubted that he ever would be the same way that he was again.
Yeah, because I feel like that tree is such like a symbol for their friendship. Like that's where like when they had one of their first like big arguments. Well, and like Amir asked Hassan to like throw the pomegranate at him, but he wouldn't. It just, I don't know. Yeah, it just represents their friendship, I guess.
There was something else that I didn't get to read, but it said the carving had dulled, almost faded altogether, but it was still there. Amir and Hassan, the sultans of Kabul, and I just thought that was kind of cool because it kind of shows how like that carving in the tree is still there, even though Hassan isn't alive anymore. He still lives on in
their relationship.
In their relationship, so I think it makes this setting even more powerful because he's still that's what he has left of Hassan.
The whole stadium thing, that really made me just sick to my stomach. And it was very I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before. This book was written in the early 2000s, at the height of the involvement in the Afghan war and all that. But now today with ISIS and how they kind of take the Muslim religion and they twist it and use it for violence. And this when they were stoning these people publicly. And saying that it was God's will, that they're sinners. I don't know, it's just it's very timely, very pertinent to what's going on today. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And then just the quote at the end after the stadium when he says, "When it was all over, when the bloody corpse had been unceremoniously tossed into the backs of red pickup trucks, separate ones, a few men with shovels hurriedly filled the holes. One of them made a passing attempt at covering up the large bloodstains by kicking dirt over them. A few minutes later, the teams took the field, and the second half was underway." So it's just showing how casually this kind of behavior is, and by him making the point of saying they're in the backs of red pickup trucks, separate ones, they're separate, kind of like a respected burial, but it's not respected. It's just it's their very little show of respect for the bodies and everything like that.
Yeah.
There was when they meet the beggar guy, and he had known Amir's mother, but she had told the guy that she was worried because I'm so profoundly happy. Happiness like this is frightening. And she's like, they only let you be this happy if they're preparing to take something from you. And don't know, it just kind of, I don't know, kind of
The-
resonates in Amir's life as something.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just kind of
That
resonates.
theme of theft,
Yeah.
as the greatest sin, kind of reappears there. So in chapter 23, Amir and Farid arrive at the house where Amir is supposed to meet the Taliban official. And so while Farid waits in the car, Amir goes into where he has to wait. And he starts to kind of regret this decision. He thinks it's a mistake, but he tells himself that he needs to stop acting like a coward. And then the Taliban official enters, the same guy from the soccer match earlier who stoned those two men, and he rips off Amir's fake beard, and they start talking, and he talks about how he went door to door shooting families, primarily Hazara families, and how liberating it was. And then Amir tells him that in America they call that ethnic cleansing. And so the Taliban official asks Amir what he's doing in America. Why he's in Afghanistan. And Amir says that he's looking for Sarab. He says, I want the boy. And then Sarab enters, and Amir is just surprised at how much he resembles Hassan. And then this Taliban official starts to inappropriately interact with Sarab right in front of Amir, and then the official asks, whatever happened to old Babalu, which is a name that Asif used to call Ali, and Amir realizes that this official is Asif, and he just can't believe it, and then Asif basically tells his guards to exit the room and to not come in no matter what he hears. And so Amir and Asif get into a very big fight, like physically fight, and Sarab is the one who ends up saving Amir with his slingshot, just like Hassan used to have. And so they escape, and Farid drives them to the hospital.
I thought it was really good suspense. It kept it was just it would say his pale skin, and then it would say he took his glasses off and revealed familiar eyes.
Yeah.
And then he's he took his turban off and blonde hair came out. And and then all of a sudden it says it was SF. And it was just kind of, it was really, the way it was written was really
It really was.
Everything was leading up to it, but you didn't know until that one short sentence.
Yeah.
Kind of made it
I just found it interesting that Seth says Amir Jean as the affectionate term.
Yeah.
Makes you cringe.
Yeah.
He's taunting him.
Yeah, exactly.
What I found interesting was that before he knew who it was, Amir was literally so extremely nervous, and he was so scared and everything. But then when he found out it was Asif or whatever how you say it, he was almost got this boost of confidence, courage, because I think it kind of shows how he's changed. He's, I don't know.
He was able to stand up to Levi. He didn't
He's
really
doing it for Hassan.
Yeah, he was doing it for Hassan.
He knows what he did to Hassan, so he, in a way, feels like he has to stand up and do something that he should have done a long time ago, which he never did. And there was something in this chapter that I just thought was the way that he wrote this one part on 288. It said, at the bottom it says, the side of my face slamming against the corner of the television stand, the snapping sound again, this time just under my left eye, music. So Rab screaming, fingers grasping my hair, pulling my head back, the twinkle of stainless steel, here they come, the snapping sound yet again, now my nose, biting down in pain, noticing how my teeth didn't align like they used to, getting kicked, so Rab screaming. And I just, it kept, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but it kept pronouncing, he kept saying so Rab screaming, throughout, there was multiple, but it's really long, but multiple times he kept saying that, So I think that was kind of like foreshadowing for what was to come, because like he was there witnessing what was happening. And like I remember in the previous chapter it said something about the person from the orphanage saying that he was like really good with the slingshot. So like when I was reading that, I was like, if he's screaming, I'm sure he has it on him. So like I think there was a lot of foreshadowing that was going on, and it just made it powerful, because like at least she was like acknowledging the fact that something was happening, whereas like Amir, when that happened with Hassan, like he just kind of like sat there and didn't say anything. So in this, he's kind of showing his like qualities that like his father had.
And I really like how the author wrote the whole scene of him being like attacked by Seth, because it's like majority of the sentence just starts off with like a verb, and it's just like it's right to how he's being like absolutely, what's the term? I don't know.
Pummeled. No.
Yeah, pummeled. He was, oh my gosh, and it just.
You could
Like,
just
I could
feel
like
the
the
jaw.
Yeah.
You could like feel
You
it.
could feel each part of it, like
Yeah.
your face, like.
Yeah, and like the ribs
very visceral.
breaking. Oh my gosh! So I just really liked it.
And it was
like that.
interesting that like Amir never like really like fought. Like there's nothing about like Amir defending himself at all, really.
And then at the end, you just started laughing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that so
And
much.
Asaf was like, "What's so funny?"
What's so
And I was
funny?
like, "That's kind of good because it's making him like Asaf like kind of doubt himself and kind of get off his high horse, and then that gave Sorab enough time to."
Yeah, and it's like,
Get him in the eye.
it's parallel with like what Asaf had told him when he was in jail.
Yeah.
He started laughing when the one Russian
Yeah.
person was like kicking him,
Yeah.
and he started laughing, and that like totally threw him off. And now he's doing it to Asaf.
There's so many like parallels, like and like how like Sarab was the one watching, you know, Amir and Asaf, like, but like back then, like it was Amir who was the one watching, like Hassan and Asaf, like I don't know, like kind of that parallel. Yeah, like it's almost like now Hassan is seeing Amir finally come to his defense.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing like what Hassan would have done if he was in Amir's position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This author is very good at parallelism.
So you know how we were talking about, while you guys were saying that, like how we were saying something about how they were describing everything that was happening. Well, I found like a little section that I thought was really powerful. It said, Sorab raised his arms and turned slowly. He stood on tiptoes, spun gracefully, dipped to his knees, straightened and spun again. His little hand swiveled at the wrist, his fingers snapped, and his head swung side to side like a pendulum. His feet pounded the floor, the bells jingling in perfect harmony. With the beat of the tabla, he kept his eyes closed. I just feel like in that, when I read that, I kind of think of him as like, and like for some reason it's like describing him as like if you were treated like an animal or something. Like he's like shackled up, he has like he can't even like defend himself, and it kind of you know what I mean though, it like makes him seem like that. So I thought that was really powerful, and it makes you have like, I feel like the readers have like pathos.
Yeah.
And they like really feel for him and feel like they want to do something to help him. For sure.
So in chapter 23, it basically follows Amir in the hospital and him coming in and out of consciousness, not really realizing where he's at, and all these people who are around him, he doesn't realize that they're nurses, and he doesn't know that he's in the hospital, but he eventually comes to and kind of realizes where he is and the severity of his injuries. His eye socket's broken, he has a ruptured spleen, broken ribs, a punctured lung, most of his teeth are missing, his mouth is wired shut, and also his lip is split in half, which is kind of a note to Hassan's hair lip, which we learned about previously. But Farid and Sarab show up, and they tell Amir that Rahim Khan has left, but he left a note for Amir, and in the note he tells Amir that he basically knows everything that happened with Hassan, and that what Amir did was wrong, but he was too hard on himself because he was just a young boy. And he tells Amir he knows he suffered because of his relationship with Baba, but he also says that they were both similar, Baba and Amir, in the way that they were both tortured souls, essentially. And so, and also within the note, Rahim Khan leaves a key to a safe deposit box with money to cover all of Amir's expenses. And he tells Amir that he shouldn't look for him. That's his only wish. And so then Amir gives Farid the names of an American couple that runs the orphanage in Peshawar. And so Fareed goes to try and find them, and the whole time Amir is spending his time with Sarab. Sarab won't speak at all, but they just play cards together. And when Fareed learns that there never was an American couple to take care of Sarab, Amir leaves for Islamabad and takes Sarab with him.
I like the part like at the bottom of 301 where it starts with, "I cannot describe to you the depth and blackness of the sorrow." Because that's talking about like I don't know. It's kind of like redeeming Baba in a way. We want.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So it says, the worst laceration was on your upper lip, Armand said. The impact had cut your upper lip in two, clean down the middle. But not to worry, the plastic guys sewed it back together, and they think you will have an excellent result. Though there will be a scar. That is unavoidable. But as I watched a pigeon peck at a breadcrumb on the windowsill, I kept thinking of something else Dr. Faruqi had said. The impact had cut your upper lip in two, he had said. Clean down the middle. Clean down the middle like a hair lip. There's obvious pathos because he's now looks like he still now has like a deformity that he would call out in Hassan. Like he has that now. Because early in the book he would be like, and the hair lipped Hassan said, like he kept like saying that, and now that's him. So that's something.
And once again, it kind of shows that parallelism. Like it's like it's like I feel like they're bringing back a lot, like they're connecting things in a way, and it's just like showing how Hassan and Amir like aren't so different after all. And I think that kind of just reassures that fact, because you can like see those qualities through Hassan's son. So I think it like emphasizes that.
And also kind of like everything Amir does reminds him of Hassan. So like now, like even when he looks in the mirror, he's gonna be like,
He's got like a part
That's
of
all
with him.
Yeah. But like like for rhetoric, so like the way that I think it's written also, like there's just like sentences that are very short, like clean down the middle, and then that's a sentence like a hair lip. Like that just like really gives power to what
he wants the reader to like pick up on what he's trying to put down.
And and
I'm sorry, it was right there.
And I feel like in a way, like by making the sentences so short, it kind of makes you think that something is gonna come back and like
like it's that theme is not.
It's not gonna go away. Like the way that he, like since he made this so powerful,
he's like,
it's definitely.
It's I don't know what this could possibly mean. Maybe you guys can think, but like it's interesting that they both had like some like their hair lip or the cut lip, but it was both of them had it like reversed or like fixed. I feel like that means something, but I don't know what. Maybe it doesn't.
I think it could.
Yeah.
I think Miss David can figure out what
Yeah.
she thinks it means.
What do you think?
That's a rhetorical question.
That's for the end of the rhetorical question. What do you think?